Everybody in the whole wide world really just needs to chill.
So everything I just mentioned, there's kind of just a long-winded way of trying to get to what were your influences growing up and what sort of led you on a path to music. Because from what I read, you were into music at a very young age. You taught yourself how to play guitar. But was there any influence there from other people or musical heroes of sorts?
Well, I was surrounded by a lot of music when I was growing up. My parents were into the into the swing and classical music and opera. And so when I was born in '46, there was all those sounds. My parents would have parties, and a piano player would come over, and it would be swing music and lots of singing and lots of that energy. My older brother and sister, they're 9 and 10 years older respectively, and they were into the '50s music, so the early boy bands and Elvis, etc.
Elvis, yeah, that's what I was
and
gonna say.
then in the '60s was my generation of the boomers and the folk scene. So I had a vast array of musical influences at that time. Specifically in the children's direction, the only things that I recall on that path were storytelling. I had a little crystal set, things that you probably have no concept of, but they used to have these little. One I remember was a little rocket. It was about 3-4 inches high. It looked like a little space rocket ship, and
Okay.
the nose cone was the tuner. So you would
Oh,
grab the nose cone and you would pull it out, and it would, you'd move it up and down to try and find the station.
wow. That's pretty
Exactly.
radical.
Oh, this is old. This is old technology. So so there were some stations that I knew, particularly on a Sunday morning, would have like story times, and there were a number of classic um, actors and singers and storytellers. People like uh, Danny Kaye and Ray Bolger and Burl Ives. I mean, really, really wonderful, essentially folk style people. But I remember listening to these stories and just being so engaged in the spoken word and the music that went with it. So when I came to doing my first record back in 80, in 70, 78, 79, I really wanted to put a story on it because of that influence. So I had written the story of Blender based on a 1930s um, children's book, and my thought initially was every album I do is going to have a story. That didn't work out. The second album had Julie Gironde and the Polka Dot Pony, and then after that it sort of drifted away to to more music. But I've always uh, appreciated that my songs could have a story component to them, like something like Poco, or I mean, many of my stories go deep
Definitely.
into story thread. So those, I mean, that vast array of musical variations stayed with me, and I use those influences. I use them all the way through my career
Well,
and
definitely.
continuing.
Your storytelling is just apparent from the second you see any of your work. It's you always tend to paint a picture with every song that you sing, and really,
Mm.
like it's like you said, it's extremely engaging. So I understand why that would be perfectly tuned for children.